breakfast this morning with the Prime Minister. Like this was a nightmare conversation that's not getting any exposure. Let's have a look first of all, because remember, this government held the last government to a standard that basically, if a single pickpocketing happened somewhere in the country, it was Chris Hipkins' fault. All of the bad stats around crime were all laid at the feet of Labour. So one's only fair that crime stats now get laid at the feet of National. Now, some of you are going to say, some of you want to push back. No, it's a carryover. No, if there are new spikes in crime, for example, gun violence over the weekend.
What are you doing in the context of 5 gun crimes over the weekend? In the context of Tanya Kura, the Assistant Police Commissioner, telling Jenny May earlier in the program that year-on-year gun crime is increasing. What are you actually doing?
Well, actually, John, just in the last year, just so you do know the facts, is that actually victimisations with guns.
So first of all, it doesn't answer the question by trying to use, as Kellyanne kindly would say, alternate facts.
Guns have actually come down after going up for a number of years.
Where are those figures from?
I can give you those figures,
but just not right now. I don't know about them now, but I'll have my people call your people.
What we're looking at is total victimisation, or victimisations with guns-related stuff, is actually just trended down over the last year, which is a good thing, but it's not nearly enough.
Overall victimisations are down 2% overall, although it's a strange old measure because police don't keep violent crime stats, right? Guns, what are we talking about? Because there are lots of articles that suggest gun crime is having a big start to the year.
Under national, hard on crime. The last guys couldn't get any of their crime stats down. Under national, though, gun crime going through the roof.
Well, I just say to you, there's still issues with guns. Let me tell you what we're doing about it. The first and foremost is the police now have new powers to crack down on gang patches. The upside of that is it actually gives police the powers to actually go into gang pads, gang cars when they pull people over, and they've actually been securing a lot of these illegal guns off gang members over.
So your way to battle the gun crime in New Zealand is to hopefully find out that they're wearing a patch and then use it. So therefore, if they stop wearing patches, you've got nothing you can do. So basically what you're saying to all the gang members out there is stop wearing your patches. We can't stop you. We can't search you. So that's the tactic for getting gun crime down. Got it.
The period of the last quarter since the new legislation came in late last year. We've obviously got our firearm prohibition orders, which is about to bite, but for that to happen, you need to get the first prosecution. That will happen shortly, but that's important because that gives police even more powers about that. But we are backing the police to give them as many tools as they possibly need to because...
But are you? Police Association don't feel like you're backing them. Are you really backing the police?
You're right. The issue is the illegal guns, and it sits with the gangs, and that's why we've got to smash the gangs and actually put them in their place and actually take the guns off them.
Are you doing that? Are you doing that? Sorry. I just want to ask you. You say you got to smash the gangs. It's the second time you've used that phrase in the interview.
3 minutes before the first part of the conversation, he said smash the gangs as well. It's so the thing that's so pedestrian about these guys is you can hear what they're saying for the week is. And this week, you just keep listening out for Luxon, smash the gangs. Says it twice in this conversation. You'll hear it more through the week because some 25-year-old on the 9th floor who's probably doing part-time social media as well has gone, smash the gangs. That sounds, I'd listen to that.
And as I say, used it very effectively prior to the last election. Are you doing that? We're not seeing gang patches, but ain't no one being killed. Ain't no one being killed by a gang patch. It's the guns that kill people, right? It's the guns that Chris Cahill told Jenny May.
Correct.
His police officers were coming across every single day. What are you doing to get them off the streets?
Exactly, John. That's what I'm just trying to say to you is that with the gang patch legislation, that enables police to have more interaction with gangs to actually take away illegal guns because they're in there.
If they've got a patch on. So if they don't, you got nothing.
Prosecuting on gang patches and coming across other stuff, drugs, guns, all those other things. So when we talked about this with the commissioner just recently, and one of our stand-ups was that in that first quarter since that legislation has been passed, there's been some really good progress with illegal guns actually coming out of the gang environment.
Number one.
Okay, so he's identified that gangs equals guns. Right. Next logical thought, Mr. Luxon. Where are the gangs getting the guns from? We know that, although not officially, that it's straw buys. It's It's people that associate with the gangs but aren't gang members, who
Yep.
might not have criminal records, but are quite happy to take the gang's cash by legitimately buying guns for which we don't have any sort of way of tracking who bought them, who still has them, whether they've been moved on, whether they've been stolen. Because a firearms minister, the minister in charge of this, doesn't want to register.
Well,
doesn't think the police can do it.
So that conversation happens, or has happened in this as well, about the straw buyers, whatever they're called. But also this next part of the conversation flows quite well into what you've just said, because there is new legislation coming up. And John Campbell's like, I'm surprised we haven't talked about this new legislation more. But is Nicole McKee, former, some would say, current gun lobbyist, the best person to put in charge of that, seeing as it's trying to keep firearms away from the gangs? And apparently multiple groups, including the police, are wondering why the Minister for Police isn't in that position. It would appear that he was, and Nicole McKee has replaced Mark Mitchell. So that's this conversation.
There is up for the third reading under urgency this week. Is it under urgency? Why should Nicole McKee replace the Minister of Police in this legislation? It seems really strange to me. The police have said it's strange. Why is that happening?
Well, John, I think you're mixing two issues. The first issue is, where are the source of illegal guns? They're actually coming from gangs. That's why we're being tough on gangs. There's a series of issues around firearms
hold on a sec. No, Prime Minister, sorry. The gangs have them. No, well, hold on a sec. The gangs have them, but Chris Cahill told us earlier they're coming from straw buyers, right? Which is people who have guns legally and then are on selling them.
And Chewie, remind us, how could we get rid of that? The thing that the police actually want as well, it's with the
gun register.
And then there would be a way to track the gun going from the gun shop to the owner. Then people could go and go, hey, can you show us the gun that you own? Hey, why are we finding this gun in those people's hands when it says you're supposed to own it? But this government doesn't want a gun registry. The police do.
Because
they don't.
Gun City doesn't want a firearms register.
Yep. All right, we'll keep going with Mr. Luxon.
Yeah, so you're sort of mixing your drinks a little bit. So what I'm just saying to you, there's a series of actions around gangs, which is what we've implemented with our legislation at the end of last year. There's a series of work that's underway to look at the Arms Act, which is 40 years old and a really old piece of legislation. Our focus in all of the firearms conversations is to make sure that we're enhancing public safety, and that's been our focus. What you're talking about is a very specific...
enhancing public safety, right? Remember that. We want to know how you're enhancing public safety. It does sound like a good title. Now break that down for us, please, Mr. Luxon. How are you enhancing public safety?
Piece around compliance on gun clubs in particular. That's not where the issue's actually happening. That's actually manageable, and that's a very reasonable change.
But it could be because straw buyers, who are clearly prima facie cynical buggers and should be ashamed of themselves, who have obtained the guns legally and may in some cases belong to gun clubs, are on selling them to gangs. So isn't it about getting this right at source? I'm just really confused. Is Nicole McKee, former gun lobbyist, spokesperson for the Council of Licensed Firearms Owners, now Associate Justice Minister with responsibility for firearms, the right person to keep guns out of the hands of gangs?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and our cabinet understands. So as we look at all the firearms components of the legislation that we're reviewing, which was actually a commitment from the National Party and the ACT Party, the reality is we need to make sure that we're continuing to enhance public safety. So that's why the review of the firearms registry is there to make sure that it's actually working in the way.
The people in Featherston and Carterton think their safety was enhanced over the weekend. I mean, look, everyone knows this is tough. I just wonder, are you enhancing public safety? And if so, how? Let's set aside the gang patch stuff. What will the arms, shooting clubs, shooting ranges and other matters amendment bill do to enhance public safety?
Well, John, what I've just said to you is there's two bits. You're mixing two things. The firearms legislation, and I understand the link around illegal guns and straw sales, right? But the firearms legislation there's been no discussion, no decisions made on all of that. There's a series of things that are being, looked at in there, quite rightly so, because that legislation is 40 years old. So, but rest assured, as those decisions come to Cabinet, we'll be making sure that we enhance public safety. Everything we've been doing is...
So it's just said enhance again, but it hasn't really said how. This is the buzzwords.
The government is about improving public safety. That's why we passed the gang laws. That's why we've got the associating and consortium provisions. That's why we've got firearm prohibition orders coming. That's why later this week we're actually going to cap the amount of sentencing discounts that judges can apply to serious crimes. That's actually all part of our effort to make sure that we actually are doing everything we can.
And even if that comes into place, how does getting judges to not be able to sentence fewer months equal safer guns out in the community? It's just all
of that comes after the fact.
Yeah. Yep.
Like he's not talking about who's importing the guns. He's not talking about what sort of guns are being imported. He's not talking about tracking who buys the guns. He's not talking about having enough police to police the firearms laws that we do have. He's a firearms minister that seems to want to roll back a whole bunch of stuff that Labor brought in after the mosque shootings.
Yeah.
So he can't have this both ways.
Yeah. Well, he tries, and we are going to get to the mosque shootings before we wrap up, but this has got about 5 to 10 seconds to go.
To make sure people are safer.
Yeah, well, I think it's a few seconds to make sure people are safer. If you saw this being out of whack as well, in other words, like not in sync, I apologize.
Let's talk about the government.
I don't know why that was the case. Right, so we'll keep going actually, because I've got 2 very short clips here. I'm just refreshing them in case that sync thing was happening out there as I was seeing it. Okay, so Chewie, it was interesting. I wonder if John Jay got a voice in his ear, because this question that I'm going to play for you now is only 1 minute and 18. This is asking Mr. Luxon if we could ever, is there any future anywhere that we possibly could go back to gun laws like we had pre-2019? Like, is that a possibility at all? And what you want this Prime Minister to say is, well, no, of course not. But he doesn't. And he won't. Which means there's no guarantees we won't.
Would there ever be a situation in which returning to the status quo in 2019 and before, when, of course, the terror attacks took place in Christchurch, around the ability to own semi-automatic weapons, would there ever be a situation where we would want to go back?
Ever. In other words, is there any possibility, 1% chance, anything at all that we could go back there?
I can't imagine so, John. We want to improve public safety. But what I just say is, you just remember, it's often misrepresented by the media as a ban. There are license holders who have semi-automatic rifles for different purposes.
Absolutely. But I'm talking about what was in place prior to 2020. Would you ever want to return to that regime in any shape or form?
Well, I just say to you, under the current laws that we have today, you've seen illegal gun crime over the weekend, which is concerning. We want to make sure we enhance and improve public safety. That's what we're doing as we go through the firearms legislation work.
But Prime Minister, sorry, did you answer my question? Would there ever be a situation in which it would be okay to return to the pre-2020 situation?
Third time round.
I can't imagine, but we've yet to have those conversations in Cabinet, and there's a range of considerations around firearms legislation that we need to look through as we rewrite that Arms Act, which is 40 years old.
So I can't imagine it, but I can't give you an unequivocal. What that means is the door is open for that as a possibility.
My personal view is no. It still has to go to Cabinet, but this is my personal position. Fucking just answer a question, man.
Yeah, but even just no. And if that changes, I mean, these guys have walked back so much so far. In that moment, no. It's not a difficult word to say. Here's the last thing.
I am going to give him very much a partial credit for pointing out the fact that there are licensed users that still have access to semi-automatic weapons. Mm-hmm. That tightened up massively after the mosque shooting, and it's mainly in pest control and stuff like that. So that's true. At least he knows that. But he is woefully out of his lane on everything else.
And so that actually happened right at the end of the the 8-minute conversation, and I wonder if a producer had spoken into John's ear, and John went, "Oh yeah, that's a good question," because this is the conversation they had in between. It's only 55 seconds, 53 seconds, and it's all about, are we going to get those 500 new police officers like you promised and promised and promised again, seeing as right now we are starting negative 50 because we've lost 50 police.
Let's talk about the government's support of the police. The government will deliver 500 net more police on the beat in 2 years. Police Minister Mark Mitchell in February of last year. At that stage, there were 10,190 sworn officers. There are now 10,139. It's actually down 50 on when he promised to increase it by 500. How are you going on delivering on that target?
Well, we've actually had less police leaving, which is a good thing. I think our attrition rates are down about 5.5% from memory when I last looked.
Are we allowed to pick up the Prime Minister on correct use of grammar? I know we're not good, but are we allowed to pick him up? That's fair, isn't it?
The leader of the country should be faultless.
Fewer, not less. Fewer police officers.
Well, we've actually had less police leaving, which is a good thing. I think our attrition rates are down about 5.5% from memory when I last looked at it. We've had really great number of recruits coming through. And in fact, this year, John, we're having to actually increase our recruit rings out to about 100. We used to have about 70.
Will you meet that target?
So,
will you meet that target of 500 extra police?
Well, it'll be tough, but yeah, that's our commitment. That's what we're going to do. We're going to do everything we can to meet that target. And so we have.
Did you see that stage down? That's what we said. That's our commitment. We'll see what we can do. That went from a yes to a maybe to a nah. Just in that 3 little steps, went from a that's what we said. That's our commitment. We'll see what we can do. Just in 3 quick sentences.
Tough, but yeah, that's our commitment. That's what we're going to do. We're going to do everything we can to meet that target. And we have to get those extra police officers out onto the front line.
So there you go, Chewie. That's the end of my videoing for tonight. And that is the end of the Prime Minister's talky talk on BHN.
Look, what I'd say to you is, I'm just laser focused on cost of living, increasing public safety, fucking just add it all to the grab bag. Look, these guys have made so many promises. The police are one promise, the ferries are another, hospitals and healthcare, no cuts to frontline. All of this, we're going to bring the cost of living down. All of these are core promises that they took into the election. Well, with the exclusion of the ferries, they didn't talk about that during the election. But a lot of these are core messaging that they had going into the election. And in every single count that we are keeping track of, they have objectively, provably failed. This is the record that Labour and Greens and Te Pāti Māori need to hammer at every possible opportunity. In the same way that Luxon will always hit his talking points, they need to hammer that point with every time there is a camera in their fucking face.
Yeah.
That this is the message. I noticed today that Chippy is really getting Labour's messaging online with something that we suggested. Nice, pithy, 3-word slogan.
Yep.
Have you seen that, Pat?
I have not.
It is
fuck off. Is it fuck off, Luxon?
I would give so much credit for that. Look, I'm going to give Chippy a lot of credit actually, because for just coming out and calling Winston an old man yelling at clouds. The only thing he could have done better is literally hold up the placard of Abe Simpson yelling at clouds. Just do the meme, bro. Just have it in your back pocket. You'll always need it. I'm misquoting it, but it is 3 words. I think it's homes is the last word, health and something else. Maybe
what
wealth,
up,
health,
home?
and homes.
Is it what up, homes? Is the last word?
I don't think it's what up, homes, and I don't think Chippy has just had cornrows put in. Okay. So yeah, but look, if they're getting their messaging all lined up now, I think that bodes quite well. But they need to hammer these guys. They've promised so many things. They've completely flooded the zone with how they were going to improve things for Kiwis. Objectively, have they done that? Is your groceries cheaper? Do you feel safer? Are there more police? You know, I think that's a bullshit metric for working out whether people are safer or not, having a lot of cops. But again, objectively, if you're going to ask the police to do more, you need more police to do it. You know, I can't help but draw a line between there are less cops now, there is more meth now, we are having more gun crime now.
Yeah. Because I tell you what, National would be drawing that exact line. If they were in opposition, it would be a straight line. Yeah,
absolutely. So good for the goose, good for the gander. They were criticizing Labor for kids doing ram raids, stealing cigarettes and driving cars through malls. I was less worried about that than I am in a sudden outburst of firearm related violence. Jobs, health and homes. Thank you very much. Yes, I think that is not a bad wee slogan to hammer.
Yeah. It's a good start. It's a good start, Chippy. Well done, sir.